When I was transitioning out of the corporate environment and the way that it happened so abruptly, felt kind of lost and kind of trying to find my direction.
I guess the most dynamic or event for me was the trauma of my divorce. And when that happened, I really had to dig deep because I went into a really dark place to kind of get myself out.
We both were coming from a place of wanting to spread kindness, empathy, and compassion in the world. So it was this kindness to self first, and then spreading that out, rippling that out into the world, and with empathy and compassion, having people reconnect to that.
She said, we should really create some sort of umbrella for both that's like our merged offering. And so we came up with Spirit-Born Imaginings. And to me, that word imaginings was just this idea of imagination, of creativity, of kind of that spark of being creative.
That's the thing that really motivates me and makes me feel like, okay, I love to see people have those moments where they think to themselves, oh, I am okay just as I am.
And I'd love to know more about your creativity, your collaboration. Tell us more about your Spirit-Born Imaginings and what makes it unique.
So each workshop is designed to always create an element of.
Hey everyone, it's Sophia from Sacred You. Thank you so much for being here. A quick message before we dive into today's conversation. You may have been watching the podcast videos, but have not had a chance to hit that subscribe button. So if you have ever gained value from our videos, from our conversations, it would mean so much to us if you would hit that subscribe button below right now, or even just give us a like. And what that means is not only does it allow us to grow our subscriber base, but it allows us to bring in more important guests for you to listen to, and you will be one of the first ones to be notified. So please hit that subscribe button and let's get started on today's conversation. Welcome to today's Pathway to Wellbeing podcast. I'm Sophia Soul from Sacred You, but I'm really excited because today not do I just have one special guest, but we have two with us. The beautiful Jan Jeremias and the incredible Mary Jane McQueen. Thank you so much, amazing women, for joining us today for our podcast.
Thank you. We're excited to be here.
Yes, absolutely. And I just noticed that I am a JJ, you're an SS, Sophia, and Mary Jane's a MM.
Yes.
I was like, oh. Sorry, I diverged there, but I was like, wow.
Oh no, it's very unique. So
Yeah.
So let's get going on an incredible conversation all about self-care and self-love and how we can uplift, inspire, and transform others. And I'm really going to enjoy today's conversation because it's something very close to my heart. But what I'd love to start off first is tell us about you, beautiful women. Tell us about your journey and how did you get to establishing your creation, which we're going to talk about too, Spirit-Born Imaging. But how did you get there? Where did you start off? So Jan, you're on my top spot, so I'm going to pick on you first. Tell us about you. What's your journey?
Yeah, so I'm a health and wellness coach, and I've been working in the health and wellness world for a very long time. And just helping individual clients, teaching classes, workshops, being online and in person. I'm an author of multiple books. My most recent book, Faces of Grief, was actually a little bit more what I want to call an opening of the soul. It was there for you, Sophia, with Sophia Soul. An opening of the soul, because it was really where I kind of told a story about much more about who I am and how I got to be where I was, as opposed to most of the stuff I had written previously, which was much more technical. And so it wasn't really, putting myself out there in a vulnerable space. And so That's what I do. And I met Mary Jane through, I don't know, it was either Hans Parge or the Serving Circle, where I met you, Sophia. And we got on, and I don't know that we especially planned to collaborate. I think that we just figured we would get to know each other. And then all of a sudden we were like, oh, wouldn't it be kind of cool if we decided to do some workshops together? And it kind of started from there, where we decided to merge our gifts. My gift of being a yoga teacher and health coach and meditation teacher and breath work, let alone some other modalities, and Mary Jane's beautiful gift as a creative. And so, Mary Jane, maybe talk a little bit about yourself, and then we can kind of merge them together.
Yes, please. Jane, tell us about you, because you're a little bit different, your journey, just a slightly different.
Yeah, it's slightly different. Well, I mean, it's been a wonderful journey. I would say, what was it? And at the end of 2019, I was afforded a beautiful opportunity to really expand on my gifts. So I worked for 31 years in corporate marketing. So that was definitely a space, but I definitely learned a lot of valuable lessons there. And it's just coming out of it now. I'm in the position. I mean, of course, at first it was a restructuring situation, so it was a bit of a grieving process that I went through for that. But now I am so honored to be able to serve people, my fellow entrepreneurs and people in general, to get their mission and vision out there into the world. They have beautiful creations of their own, even though some have told me they weren't creative at all, which we will get into, I'm sure, but which was shocking to me. But it's just now I get to serve in that way and sort of co-create with them something that feels authentic to them. And so initially, actually, Jen and I had a conversation, then I helped her a little bit with a few things that she had ongoing with her things. And we just found we had a really strong connection, and that we both were coming from a place of wanting to spread kindness, empathy, and compassion in the world. So it was this kindness to self first, and then spreading that out, rippling that out into the world, and with empathy and compassion, having people reconnect to that. And of course, for me, reconnecting to creativity is the key, which sort of speaks to why I was so shocked when people told me they weren't creative.
And sometimes that gets our creativity tends to get blocked, but it's down there. We just have to unblock it through various means, which I'm sure we're going to talk about. So thank you for sharing that. And Mary Jane, I'd love to know from you a little bit, for you, because Jan is into a lot of self-care, meditation and yoga. What about you? How has self-care shaped your journey and your outlook for life?
Yeah, well, for me, especially when I was transitioning out of the corporate environment and the way that it happened so abruptly, it was I was kind of felt kind of lost and was kind of trying to find my direction. And I had the opportunity to be involved with was introduced to a beautiful program of self-development, and sort of learning to sort of see how those things that happened weren't happening to me, that they actually happened for me, and that it created beautiful opportunities for me to expand on the things that were in my heart to do and to serve the world with. And so for me, that was the start. Well, that was the main start of the journey of that for transformation, of course. But and then I had been doing for a number of years yoga, and I was also familiar with the meditation aspect of yoga. So I'd already been doing that. So it wasn't a stretch ultimately to, as I was working through that journey of self-development and reconnecting with who I was at heart. It really wasn't as hard to connect the two together. And and just being connected to like kind and beautiful people, and that's, with heart-centered people. And then that's, I think, what Jan and I connected with as well, was just having that desire to serve and reconnecting people.
Absolutely. And it always helps when you have that deep desire to serve others, because by serving others, you're serving yourself. You also
Yes.
know that we have to take care of ourselves in order to help help others.
Mhm.
And Jane, what about you? Has there been any moment in your life, or can you share a moment, because I'm sure there's been lots of moments, where self-care or even self-love has transformed, a difficult situation for you?
Absolutely. When I guess the most dynamic or event for me was the trauma of my divorce. And when that happened, I really had to dig deep, because I went into a really dark place to kind of get myself out. That is what I write about in my book of Faces of Grief, my contribution to the book. Because, I don't know that people think about that circumstance or that experience as being a loss necessarily, but it was definitely a loss of myself, of who I was, of the life I thought I was supposed to have, the life I did have. I grieved a family that all of a sudden I went from having basically two families to one family, and friends who no longer like connected with me because they were my husband's friends. So there was so much involved, and I really needed to figure out a way to practice self-love and compassion. There was a lot of self-blame and self-criticism that evolved from that, self-worth issues, and I needed a way to learn how to care for myself and to heal. That's the way I look at self-care, as a process of healing. And that was a deep healing for me. And I did that through various different like modalities. I explored things, Reiki and reflexology and yoga and breathwork and meditation and essential oils and forest bathing. And, it was just like anything I could sort of experience that made me feel more at peace was what I gravitated to. I then explored those modalities and shared them with others. So I did take them. I think that's the one way to me you overcome. It's probably the best form of self-care, which you just spoke about in a way, is to take care of others. And I think that that's what I've learned through this whole experience of listening to people's stories of loss, that, most of the people who gain resilience and who kind of overcome situations took their circumstances and figured out a purpose from them, and then went out and served the world via that purpose. Because I think that finding that purpose or that reason to serve is so much a part of the healing process.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. When we have that purpose within us, then we're able to go forward, because it helps us strengthen stuff like that. So thank you. Thank you for sharing. And when you speak to others, which will go on with what you both have created very, very soon, but how do you encourage other people to begin their self-care journey?
Jan, are you waiting for me to speak?
I wasn't sure which one of us was going, Mary Jane. So why don't you go, and then
It's awesome. Obviously, as you know, and you sort of alluded to, we do that through the workshops that we do through Spirit Born Imaginings. But just in general, with the people that I meet, if I know that somebody's struggling, and if I feel that they're open to it, I will share with them my own story, my own journey, because we know that the meat of it is in the story, that what people understand and realize, I'm not alone in this journey. It may not be the exact same situation, but they realize, oh, there is a way out of the darkness. And that's, Jan spoke to about loss. I mean, that's how I felt. I felt like I was in a grieving process for something that I had been part of for 31 years. It was a big shock and a big change. And just even sharing that story of that loss and others, it really, it opens the door to offer the idea that self-care and self-kindness is key to moving forward. So that's my take on it.
Thank you. Thank you. And can I just take a moment, Jane, before you continue, just to honor you both? I mean, because it's, sharing our stories as inspiring others to know that other people are not alone is a really great way to serve the world. I think there's a big difference to sharing our stories to living in our stories.
Yes.
Thank you. And I'd just like to honor you both for bringing your wisdom, your passion to the world.
Wow.
Yeah.
Thank you, Sophia.
No problem. So, Jan, what about you? How do you encourage people to start their self-care?
Well, I think one of the prime ways we can do that, one of the major ways, is by living it, like you mentioned it. I think if we practice self-care, then people begin to look at it as being normal. The more people that begin to practice it, the more people don't think it's something unique. It's not something self-indulgent in a negative way. That they're like, oh, okay, it's okay that I take care of myself. I think we're taught as a culture to pretend we're okay, and to put on this mask of like everything is fine, even though we're not fine. And also to kind of go with the attitude of being like, I have to go out and suck it up. Like if I'm feeling horrible, I suck it up and I do it anyway. And I think personally, I think that women take on that role a lot, because I think in the workforce, if you're in the traditional work world, there is this impression of like, we don't want to look weak. We don't want to be told we're too emotional, even though I think that's great. Or sensitive. I think
that one.
Yeah, me too. And I think that, if we practice it, then people will understand that this is a necessary part of my life. Like this is like pushing pause is a part of the journey.
And a huge, relevant, big part of the journey.
And so for me, it's living, being that example of, like Mary Jane said, it's sharing our experiences. And I think that's one of the beautiful things we've created in our space, is that we are very authentic, very genuine, and very vulnerable. And so I think that allows people to come and to the space and experience that for themselves, and then carry it through and be just. And I think also if you offer someone an experience, I think we talk about self-care a lot, and I don't know that people who don't practice it sometimes get it. They're like, they don't understand what self-care is. They don't even understand what it feels like. If you can like almost give people like a little teaser or a sample, then they're like, oh, okay, now I know what this feels like. And this feels good and comfortable. And I want to experience this again.
They have a taste of a more experience. They know that it's actually good for them.
Exactly.
Thank you. Now, you've both mentioned that you've been, that you're coming together and you're collaborating. So tell us, and Jan, let's continue with you. Then I want to go to Mary Jane, but tell us about Spirit-Born Images and what inspires you the most about the work that you're doing.
So Spirit-Born Imaginings, we came together and we did a number of workshops together, probably 3 or 4. And then Mary Jane said, we should probably, and I was thinking it and she said it, but that happens to us all the time. We either say the same thing or we're like both thinking it at the same time. And she said, we should really create some sort of umbrella for both. That's like our merged offering. And so we came up with Spirit-Born Imaginings. And to me, that word imaginings was just this idea of imagination, of creativity, of kind of that spark of being creative, which Mary Jane can speak to a little bit more. And the spirit born was getting down to that authentic self, to me, to that place within yourself, which was, you know, the deepest part of yourself. That's not the place that judges, that doesn't label any, you know, what you do as good or bad or right or wrong. And so when we merged together to create a space and create workshops, I brought yoga and meditation because and breathwork, because that's the one way, and probably one of my primary sort of paths to getting to that place. And I wanted people to experience that, to be able to get to a place where they could practice and they got beyond that labeling of, you know, which we tend to as people, is like, oh, I did it wrong, I didn't do that correctly, as opposed to the journey and the process. So that was really the coming together to me, was to get people to that space of realizing sort of like their innate gifts.
Yes.
And their innate ability that, you know, we're perfectly imperfect, like that whole idea of being, you know, beautiful just as they were, or just as they are.
To really experience them. It's a fabulous thing when you can really, you know, go beyond the physical in the world that we live in, the 3D world and all the expectations and everything else, just to really experience the beauty of the spirit within.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for sharing that, Jane. And what about you, Mary Jane? What, you know, for you, what inspires you the most about what you and Jane have created?
Well, there's several things, but the one thing is, it's just because, as we were mentioning earlier, it's just the space that we've managed to co-create with the people that participate in the workshops and even our audio events, right, Jen? I mean, it's really, yeah, that's the thing that really motivates me and makes me feel like, okay, you know, this is I love to see people have those moments where they think to themselves, oh, I am okay just as I am. And my key thing is really, I love being able to sort of lead people to reconnect with their creativity, because it's that area where a lot of us have forgotten. We've forgotten what it's like to be that little child that wasn't afraid to try anything, and there was no judgment. It didn't matter. And having people give up that self-judgment, or the judgment that they heard that came to them from outside voices saying, you're not good enough, this isn't for you, you shouldn't try it. And that for me is really a sad state being. And because I mean, I'm a graphic designer by trade, and I paint and I do different things creatively. But one of the first things when I started my business was having a client say to me that they weren't creative at all, and yet they had a beautiful mission and vision that they were trying to get out into the world. And I'm pretty sure my jaw probably dropped to the table because I thought, but you've created a business, you've created this beautiful thing. And I realized that they're thinking artistic, and that's not necessarily the only outlet for creativity. And so that's in our workshops, that's one of the things we do, different things that tap into that thing, have people try things, and be free to try things, and make it fun. That's the key. Make it fun and a safe space to feel that they can share and have fun, and be vulnerable and learn something along the way. That's the hope anyway.
So tell us more, I can ask, you know, in general, when people are talking about being creative, it is, you know, art stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
Graphic design, painting, drawing, whatever, sculpturing, everything else like that. But in what other ways can creativity or being creative help us with personal healing and transformation? What other methods?
Yeah, I mean, creativity could be anything. It could be dancing, it could be writing, it could be gardening, it could be baking, it can be cooking. All of these things are all creative. It's just, for me, creativity is just that space where we can really hone in on something, really focus on something, and all the extraneous stuff can disappear, because that's where we find our joy and our passion, is in those things that light us up. And for me, creativity is that, and it just opens your mind to so many other things that may be totally unrelated to what you're specifically doing at the time, but it gets you outside of the box thinking where it's all just happens in a certain way. It helps you to expand past that. So it's just a very key thing, and entrepreneurs especially, I mean, that's something that they do. They problem solve, and they adapt on the fly, and if that's not creativity, I don't know what it is.
No, we forget that, don't we?
We do.
Yeah.
Generalization.
I mean, creativity is the hugest, one of the largest sort of qualities of problem solving. And I think when you're talking self-care, when you're talking health, we have to problem solve. I mean, that's why more traditional modalities don't work, because none of us are like exactly the same. So just normal life requires us to problem solve. And getting creative allows us to practice that in a much more, let's say, fun way. Like, I'd rather, you could probably solve problems, like, if you wanted to, like mathematical or some other kind of problems. I mean, if you're from my background, science, and that would be creative. But, why not explore it by doing something like collaging or heart mapping, which we've done, or other sort of explorations of creativity, which allows you to practice that maybe in a different type of setting. And then this way you can take it into different aspects of your life, because I do think that it does influence everyday life. And what Mary Jane mentioned is that entrepreneurship. Like, my mother was visiting not too long ago, and being an entrepreneur, and I think we all can relate to this. Like, my schedule can change in a given day in a moment's notice, because all of a sudden I have 3 people who canceled, and then 2 other new people who like booked. And she said to me, how do you keep it and how do you maintain that flexibility and that adaptability, creativity?
Certainly helps. Certainly,
Mhm.
certainly, absolutely help. And would you say that being creative in all different ways, whatever way someone chooses, is that what really helps you to maintain like a balanced life, especially in today's world that's a little bit crazy. We've got technology everywhere. It's a bit, out there, the world. How do you
Mhm.
both, and Jan, how do you maintain a balance in your life?
I think I do revert back to I mean, since I'm a yoga teacher, I get very creative in my practice, because I have to think about new things and get creative. Otherwise, I feel like, classes get stale or boring. So for me, it's that. I am a huge writer, so I love to write. And so that's one creative outlet that I use to kind of keep my balance. And then lastly, and probably a good majority, is as much time as I can spend outside in nature. I think nature is really creative and very adaptable, right? Really able to cope with change. And so I love that aspect of being outside, being able to experience nature. That keeps me very grounded, and therefore helps me filter out the outside world. And if I can use nature in my creativity, that's even better. Like, bring in things from the outside to get creative with. So that's like really fun.
Continue that whole experience of being in nature. And I love what you said before about forest bathing too. It is so good for the soul. So good. So soothing for the soul. And what about you, Mary Jane? What do you do to maintain balance in this crazy world now? I mean, you're extremely creative, but do you do anything extra for you?
I do. I mean, graphic design, as of right now, at least is my main focus for my business. But the thing that I do, or there's a few things that I do, but the one of the things that brings me the most joy is to paint. It's still on the creative vein, but it's just the focus that I gain when I'm doing that is it just brings me immense joy. And for me, it's a key like for self-care, especially it is that I was sharing this with Jan earlier, is that in my calendar, in my scheduling, I book something that I call sacred creative time because it's it's even though it might flow and fluctuate depending on if something's happening, but I know that I have that time set aside that's just for me, for my own well-being, for me to create, whether that's painting or writing, or sometimes it's baking. I like to do that too. So, it's just, and I too like to go out into nature and breathe in the fresh air and just take in the beauty that's around. But I actually, it sounds like really boxy stuff, but for me, it actually putting it into my schedule, it reminds me that it's important for me to do that. It's not just an indulgence. It's not just a nicety. It's something that I need to refocus and re-energize myself so that I can then go out and serve more and help people more. That's basically what it's about for me. So that's really a key point for me is scheduling my sacred time. Perfect for sacred you, right?
Yes, yes, yes. We all have to schedule our sacred time because we are all sacred. We have to honor the sacredness in the sacred you in all of us. And it's so, so important. I mean, and I agree with you because we live in such a crazy world that even if you are an entrepreneur and you work from home on a computer all day, which gives you a lot of freedom to go out and do things creative. But I know from my personal experience, if you don't schedule it, the day's gone before you even realize it. And you go, oops, missed that one. I'll do it tomorrow. But that doesn't happen because the same thing, you just go on. So thank you for sharing the importance of scheduling self-care time in whatever way you want to experience that self-care sharing. And I'd love to know more about your creativity, your collaboration. Tell us more about your spirit-born imaginings and what makes it unique. I know you've mentioned something about audio groups and you run workshops. Tell us all about that, and I'm going to leave it up for whoever would like to answer that, or both.
Go ahead, Jan. I know you're just chomping at the bit.
That's right. I am. So each workshop is designed to always create an element of some sort of, I want to say, physical, emotional, and spiritual healing part of it, from, Reiki to self-reflexology to gentle yoga. Most of the time, or a lot of the time, we will add in some sort of almost sacred ceremony type experience to it, where we do something very almost traditionally ceremonial, either from a different culture or different background, whether that be maybe be Native American or some other experience into those workshops. They always have a theme, and we always have meditation. And then we combine those with very beautiful, creative experiences where we allow people to explore different creative ventures, which some of them Mary Jane and I mentioned, from collaging to heart mapping to coloring to, I don't know, we've done beading. I mean, we've done a number of different things through the year.
In December, actually, because it's such usually a very busy season for everybody, and people can feel very overwhelmed with all of the things that are happening around them. Our activity was doing some DIY self-care products. So, some foot lotion and some body scrub with some really nice essential oils and just very natural ingredients. But just to take that time, that extra time for some self-care and some pampering in a time and in a season when it can feel very overwhelming. At times, it can be overwhelming for many reasons, either too busy or not busy enough, depending on the situation, because that's a season when a lot of people can feel very isolated as well. So it's just a matter of, of taking that time, as we were mentioning, of doing that. But that was a fun. So it's kind of been, we've done all sorts of different things we've done memory boxes and things like that as well. So that was key. But we really love to have a theme and sort of find, so whether it's this self-care pampering in the holiday season, whether it's like the solstice, and there's elements of ceremony and stuff that might come with that, recognition of those different elements, and just bringing some inspiration, because that's the whole thing, inspiring people to look through a different lens about what might be going on around them, and maybe find something that they connect with that really resonates with them, that feels like it brings them back to themselves. That's really what it's about.
As you said, lens, Mary Jane, it reminded me of, I think it was our first workshop together, which was Beyond the Lens, which was Mary Jane and I came up with, which was basically about how we both didn't like to have pictures taken of ourselves. And how we decided, like, what is that about, like that, and so we actually talked about getting beyond the surface, of looking deeper beyond the outward appearance. And we took selfies throughout the workshop, of sort of, once we did certain aspects, and we'd have everybody take a selfie to get, and the increase in sort of self-awareness and just self-love, and the fact that all of a sudden people said that they looked at their pictures and they were like, oh my gosh, like, I'm beautiful kind of aspect. And then also being able to look at other people and see beyond the surface there, which I think is really profound, like that. And so that rippling effect out into the world, from someone experiencing something in our workshops to taking it beyond, let's say that is 2 hours or whatever that we spend together, and being able to bring it out into the world. Because how we show up is how our world shows up, and our interactions and relationships are always affected. And so that whole experience of, like, starting to look at people deeper than, the features that they have on their face or their skin color, or even what they're doing at the moment, and being able to look deeper, more to soul level for you, Sophia, a soul level, and recognizing their sacredness within. And so that was one of our first workshops together. And that was it was beautiful. And so, and then each person, when they take the workshop, they always get the recording. We do a beautiful ebook of all the materials we use, the poetry we read, links to the recordings of music if we happen to play them, because we usually do play some music, especially during the creative portion. The meditation script, or any other, like if it's like a gentle yoga sequence or whatever that they can take and practice at home. And so that's really been, I think, a huge gift for people, to be able to go revisit afterwards what we do.
For sharing that. And I was just going to ask, but I think you've also answered it, that in this age of technology, I'm assuming that all your workshops are online, so anyone from all over the world can attend. And is it like, is there any issues or anything that people can come with specifically, or just anyone who wants to experience a bit of creativity?
I mean, it's for us, sometimes we'll get people like physically that have specific things going on. And that is really where it's kind of like where I shine, I guess, because that's probably one of my favorite things to do. So we're very flexible and sort of, that's why during the more physical, spiritual, like I don't want to call it the healing part of it, but the non-creative portion of the workshops tend to be a little bit varied and flexible depending on what people decide to share when we start and what they need. And so often we change that, which is why it's kind of listed as Reiki, reflexology, or gentle yoga, because sometimes people come and for whatever reason, they're not able to do what we might have thought or whatever. And I want people to be in a space where they can share that and know that they're going to be honored for wherever they're at. So I really work hard at trying to be able to accommodate people and being able to experience and have the best experience possible. Each Friday we were on LinkedIn Audio, but now that LinkedIn Audio is no longer happening, we're now on Zoom for conversations. And those are just conversations we have on really interesting and varied topics. And it's remarkable, as Mary Jane mentioned, that we have this ability that people get on audio and they share whatever they feel comfortable. And I think we create that same nurturing, welcoming environment on those two. And it is truly a remarkable space, because I've been on a lot of other spaces and people, it just doesn't happen.
Yeah.
So,
you hold space very well, and you hold space for others to experience their sacredness in whatever.
Exactly.
And Mary Jane, is there anything else that you would like to add to that?
It's just Jan and I feel really honored to be able to hold that kind of space for people. And in fact, when we do our debriefs afterwards, it's like, we're like, wow, that was amazing. Not because, wow, yay, look what we did, yay, wasn't that an experience? And what did, like, the things that we often feel like, wow, we get as much or more out of the experience, either from the audios or from the workshops, than the actual people participating as well, because it gives us an opportunity to grow and expand. And it just feels wonderful to be able to support people in that way. And just and to have them recognize that they matter, that they matter.
People truly matter, no matter what they're going through.
Yes.
But they matter.
And I think one of the most beautiful things as we got on this morning on our time is, the gift of technology, of people getting on from all over the world. And it helps everybody to feel unified and connected, as opposed to a time where everybody feels very disconnected and lonely. So this idea that we all get on and we share, maybe actual circumstances are slightly different, but experiences and emotions and everything are really quite similar. And so it's just this beautiful space of today we had Ireland and South Africa and Canada and the US. And it's remarkable as we all share, we come from our different backgrounds somewhat, and different ages and different genders, and yet we're all having very similar and life-changing experiences that we share. And when we share those things, we change people. Like, the people that are in the room change our lives, and hopefully we change and have an impact on their lives.
And I'm sure you would. So thank you for sharing. And for everyone who is listening or watching our podcast, do click on the links below. Check out what Jan and Mary Jane have to offer and come and join. So you've said that you do weekly gatherings, you connect on Zoom weekly. And how
Yeah,
are the workshops?
we connect every Friday morning on Eastern Standard Time at 9 a.m. on Zoom now. Those are now recorded. We've now started recording them, so they are located on our YouTube channel.
Are
Our
brand
brand
new.
new, but like, yeah. Which I don't even think we gave you the link, Sophia, because that's literally brand new. And then the workshops are about every month to 8 weeks. In 2025, we'll be doing 8 of them. Hopefully, 2 of them are going to be in person. Like we're going to have both hybrid,
To be
and which is
hybrid
which are very exciting because Mary Jane and I have actually never met. So
in real life, in person.
In person, but yet you know each other so well, but you never
Yes.
actually know. Yes, I get
Yeah.
that experience it quite often. Yes.
So they're about every 8 weeks to a month to 8 weeks.
Okay, and all that information is available on your website, which we will be putting all your links down below the conversation. And I'd love to know, Jan, from you, because you were speaking, if we can go back to you to start with, what legacy do you hope that spirit-born imaginings will leave for the future generations? What's your legacy?
I think the legacy I would like to leave is this idea that I want self-care to be normal. I want it to be normalized in our culture. For people to recognize the value and the sacredness of doing things for yourself, of taking care of yourself, would be a legacy to me that would, because I think that would change. I mean, I think that would change the world and that would save the world. Because I really don't feel like people can live. I mean, I've tried. I mean, Mary Jane comes from that world. I come from that world. I think people are just going to get burnt out and exhausted. I mean, we were commenting that I think the only time I ever slowed down before I started leading this life was literally I would go, 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 and then I would get sick, and the world would say, "Okay, you're resting. You're stopped. Like that's it. You're done. You're done." And so that would be my legacy. I would like to, or I hope that the legacy of Spirit-Born Imaginings would be to leave that impression.
The self-care is very important, and we have to prioritize it, as you said, and a lot of people experience it as they go, 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 and then they get sick. It's like, I don't have time to get sick. Well, you've got no choice. If you don't take time out for you, that's what happens. Thank you. And what about you, Mary Jane? What's your legacy that you hope that your collaboration with Jan will be able to leave future generations?
Well, I think I spoke to it a little bit earlier, but it's just really that my mission and vision for everything that I do, even in my business and my collaboration with Jan, is literally the spreading of kindness. So the spreading of kindness to self first, rippling that out into the world, and embracing the world with empathy and compassion. That's the legacy I would like to leave behind, because I really and truly feel that kindness and empathy and compassion are the things that are going to change the world. And that's the legacy I would like to leave for future generations.
Nice, isn't it? To be kind to ourselves, kind to every other being, whether
Yes.
animals or plants or be human, it doesn't matter, but just being kind to ourselves and as you said, letting that ripple out. Thank you. I can feel it. I can feel the energy of that. So I am positive that that will come true. And if Sacred You can be part of that in any way, let us know. Let's continue. You never know what we can bring about together to help encourage the world to take that extra step of self-care, of self-love, looking after the self. All right, now before we wrap up, just a couple of other questions, and I'd love to know, Jan, if you could leave our listeners with one practice or mindset shift, because we haven't really got into, yoga and meditation and anything else. So what's one practice that you could leave that has significantly impacted your well-being?
I think the thing that's had the most impact on my life, my well-being is connection to my breath, is breath work. I think that's my favorite thing to do, just because you can do it anywhere you are. It is readily accessible, and you don't need any sort of equipment to be able to do it. Hopefully, you take yourself with you. Hopefully you can take your breath with you. And I think that was the one thing that kind of altered my life, whether that be something like a box or a square breath where everything is equal parts, or just being able to focus on my breath in really stressful, let's say, circumstances. But that was probably a life changer for me. I always say that I don't know that I took a conscious breath before I started practicing yoga. I mean, obviously I was breathing because I was here, but it was that breath awareness. And with that breath awareness is my practice of mindfulness, of to being present in the moment. And I use my breath by doing so, but trying to incorporate mindfulness into everyday tasks, like trying to be present when I am in conversation, when I am outside in nature. I have this thing about, like, technology goes off so that I get to really experience it. And so it's trying to be present in my everyday activities, because otherwise I find that it's very easy to get, like we said, to get distracted by the noise. And if I look at the practice, let's say a meditation or something, where I purposefully sit down, that's over in, like, however long I decide to meditate. And so it's the bringing of that into everyday tasks, of being mindful when I'm doing whatever I'm doing, which alters my state. So practice some sort of mindfulness, like when you're washing the dishes, wash the dishes, whatever it is. When you're cooking, cook. Like, multitasking is not really a blessing.
No, it's not. We think it is, but we find out very quickly that it's not. Thank you. I was going to ask you, Jan, would you like to give just a very quick experience of the breath work that you practice?
To do a breath work with actually everybody?
Yeah, just a very short one to take us all into that experience.
Sure. So wherever you are, if you're seated, lie down, just feel your seat on the chair or on whatever surface you were on. Feel your feet on the ground. If you want to close or gently soften your eyes, feel free. And just take some deep natural breaths, whatever that is. Don't try to alter your breath. Just become aware. If it helps to actually repeat the words, let's say in, out, or inhale, exhale, feel free to do so. So just breathing in and breathing out. In, out. And just take 3 conscious breaths just like that. And then just establish a count for the breath. So that could be for, you breathe in for a count of 3 or 4, but do a count that's comfortable for you. Today, let's say we'll go with 3. So inhale for a count of 3, and then exhale for a count of 3. Inhale for 3. 1, 2, 3. Exhale for 3, 2, 1. Inhale, 1, 3. Exhale, 3, 2, 1. One more time. Inhale, 1, 2, 3. Exhale, 3, 2, 1. Just bring your breath back to its normal rhythm. Notice how the breath feels moving in and out through your body. Notice if it's deeper, more balanced, more fluid. And if your eyes are closed, feel free to gently open them. And as you open your eyes, just take a moment to thank yourself for your breath. Thank you.
And that is so important. You know, we talk about gratitude and everything else, but how often are we grateful for our breath? How often do we appreciate the thing, the most important thing that keeps us going? Thank you for that. And Mary Jane, for you, I'd love to know what's a simple or powerful question that we can ask ourselves on a daily basis that keeps us aligned with on our path to well-being. What's something that you ask yourself that you can share? Keeps you aligned.
I think when I wake up in the morning, and I know Jan does something very similar, as I wake up and I think, first of all, I practice the act of gratitude, saying I'm here and I'm present today, and really thinking about, asking myself the question, what is it that I need today that's going to keep me inspired and moving in action? And sometimes that's the creative pursuits. Sometimes it's going to walk from nature. Sometimes it's journaling, whatever that may happen to be. But I just ask myself the question, what is it that Mary Jane needs today to keep on a path of where my vision is leading me, my mission is leading me. So that's basically for me. But it's always is, I mean, there are days, but it's like just always the idea is to starting the day in gratitude for the gift of today.
For the gift of today. Thank you. And also, and I'd just like to acknowledge or say, ditto agree that just asking ourselves, what is it that we need? And acknowledging or honoring ourselves to fulfill whatever it is that we need. Thank you. Thank you both for coming on to the Pathways to Wellbeing. I've really enjoyed this conversation. We will certainly be putting all your links down the bottom for your website, your YouTube channel, and all your workshops and the chats that you have every week. So for everyone who is watching or listening, please do click on those links. But before we go, is there any other question that I could have asked you? And how would you answer? Anything else that you'd like to share?
Well, I guess the one other thing that I would share is when you asked about legacy, I didn't mention this, but because I thought maybe Mary Jane would mention it being the creative, but I thought was this whole idea of letting people recognize their creativity, the creative aspects of, who they are and what they are, and the whole idea of looking at ourselves in a non-judgmental and not overly critical way. So that would be another legacy in that self-care, is sort of that creative acknowledgement or ownership of individuals.
And what about you, Mary Jane? Is there anything else that you would like to share?
Am I allowed to say ditto to a jet?
Okay.
Not only like it was talking about the importance of kindness to self, but it's as I spoke to earlier, it's just like gently reminding people of that inner child, the one that wasn't afraid to try something, the one that was unafraid, and to allow some of that energy to come back into our being, and in allowing that to happen, and to, as best as we can, to learn to shut out the noise that comes at us, saying that it's allowing ourselves the freedom and the joy that we experienced as a child, just trying new things. And so that would be a legacy that I would love to see people as connected to creativity is reconnecting to that, reconnecting to what brought them joy and what brings them joy.
Oh, very true. Reconnecting with, to allow that child within us to experience the joy no matter how old we are.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
That creativity, which is all part of self-care. So thank you. Thank you both. And I know I've said it before, but I'd just like to honor you both for what you bring to the world, to allowing people the platform, the opportunity to experience or to reawaken their creativity within, and bring about a bit of self-care and self-love in the process. Thank you. Thank you so much for joining us today on the Pathways to Wellbeing podcast. We do hope that this conversation with Jan and Mary Jane has inspired you to experience just a little more of self-care and self-love. Do reach out to these amazing women by clicking on the links below, even if it's just to join one of their weekly gatherings on Zoom. And if you're looking for a supportive community to continue your journey, join us at Sacred You, a space for connection, empowerment, and growth. Subscribe to this podcast, follow us on social media, and be part of a global movement creating meaningful change by visiting our website at www.sacredyou, that's the letter U, .love. Your well-being is your power. So embrace it, nurture it, and let's grow together by experiencing and taking time for some self-care. Stay inspired, stay connected. Until next time, keep walking your pathway to well-being.